Back in Rome in 897 at the Grand Basilica of St. John Lateran, there was a downright eerie and unheard of sight. Old Pope Formosus, decked out in his papal finery, sitting on a throne like he's about to host a council. But this wasn't your regular solemn affair. It was a trial. But it wasn't just any trial, because Formosus was dead. And this was his trial. At that time, Rome was in chaos. The papal throne was changing hands faster than you'd believe. Between 872 and 965, there were 24 popes crowned in Rome. That's a new pope almost every few years, sometimes even more often. But our story centers on Pope Formosus, who'd been dead for about 9 months when things really got interesting. Now, you might be thinking, dead would keep a fella out of trouble, but not Formosus. He was about to become the star of one of the strangest trials in history. Now, to understand why all this happened, we need to look at what was going on in Rome and Italy at the time. The late 800s were a mess of political intrigue and power struggles. The papacy was right in the middle of it all, playing a dangerous game with dukes, kings, and emperors. Rome itself was a shadow of its former glory. Much of the city was in ruins, with wild animals roaming where grand buildings once stood. Most of the people lived in a small part of the city, while the popes hid behind the walls of the Vatican. Formosus had been a big deal in the church for years. He started as the Bishop of Porto, just a short trip from Rome. He was quite the traveler, going on diplomatic missions to places like Bulgaria and Constantinople. But Formosus had a knack for stirring up trouble. He got friendly with Arnulf of Carinthia, a powerful Frankish king who wanted to be king of Italy. This didn't sit well with the higher-ups in Rome, especially Pope John VIII, who was afraid of losing Rome's independence to a powerful emperor. Before you know it, Formosus was kicked out of his job and on the run. He laid low in northern Italy for a while, waiting for things to cool down. His patience paid off. By 883, he was back as Bishop of Porto, and in 891, he hit the big time. He became Pope himself. But being Pope back then wasn't all it was cracked up to be. It was downright dangerous. Popes were getting thrown out of office, tossed in jail, or even killed left and right. So what did our friend Formosus do? He tried to play it smart. He had to deal with Guy III of Spoleto, who had been crowned King of Italy and Holy Roman Emperor. Formosus didn't trust Guy, so he invited Arnulf to come to Italy and challenge him. Then he crowned Arnulf as Holy Roman Emperor, thinking it would keep Rome safe. But that move didn't go over well with the local Italian bigwigs. All this back and forth is why some people loved Formosus and others hated him. To some, he was a just and pious pope. To others, he was a traitor for favoring a German king over an Italian one. In 896, Formosus died. Some say it was poison, others say it was just his time because he was 80 years old. Either way, you'd think that'd be the end of his story, but you'd be wrong. Formosus was followed by Boniface VI, who lived only 15 days after his term. Like I said, being pope back then was almost like a curse. And then Stephen VI followed Boniface, who ironically used to be a supporter of Formosus. But now this fellow had it out for him, and he wasn't going to let a little thing like death get in his way. So he decided to put Formosus on trial. A trial for a dead man. In early 897, Stephen VI gave the order to dig up Formosus' corpse. They dressed the body in full papal outfit and propped it up on a throne in the Basilica of St. John Lateran. The place was packed with cardinals, bishops, and all sorts of church big shots. Stephen VI played both judge and prosecutor. He started yelling questions at the corpse. Why'd you abandon your diocese of Porto? How dare you become pope? Now, Formosus, being dead and all, wasn't exactly in a position to defend himself, right? So Stephen appointed a young deacon to speak for him. Poor guy must have been scared out of his wits. The whole thing was beyond bizarre. Stephen would shout at the corpse, then pause like he was waiting for an answer. The deacon would stammer out some kind of defense, probably wishing he was anywhere else. Just when folks thought it couldn't get any weirder, an earthquake shook the room right in the middle of the trial. Some people took it as a sign from above, but Stephen wasn't about to let a little thing like divine intervention stop him. The trial went on, with Stephen throwing every accusation he could think of at Formosus. In the end, to absolutely no one's surprise, Formosus was found guilty. But what kind of punishment do you give someone who's already dead? Well, Stephen had some ideas. First, he declared everything Formosus did as Pope null and void. Every blessing, every appointment, every ordination, all of it was canceled. But amidst all that, it was the most normal thing he did, because then they stripped the corpse of its fancy clothes and put it in common rags. And then they chopped off the 3 fingers Formosus had used for blessings. Well, you just have to see how fired up that Pope was at the poor fella, 'cause he up and tossed his body into the Tiber River. Now you might be wondering why Stephen VI went to all this trouble to put a dead man on trial. Well, it comes down to power and politics. In those days, the body of a holy person wasn't just a corpse. It was seen as a powerful object. Saints and popes were believed to keep working miracles even after they died. By putting Formosus on trial and throwing his body in the river, Stephen was trying to make sure nobody could treat Formosus's remains as holy relics. He was trying to erase Formosus from history, to kill his memory as well as his body. Now you might think that that's the end of the story. Formosus tried, convicted, and tossed in the river. But there's more. The people of Rome might have been used to some crazy goings-on, but this corpse trial was too much even for them. Within a few months, Stephen VI found himself on the wrong side of an angry mob. They threw him in jail, and soon after, he was strangled to death. The next few popes came and went quickly. Pope Romanus lasted only a few months. Then came Pope Theodore II, who only managed to hang on to the job for 20 days. A couple of years later, Pope John IX sat in the seat and decided enough was enough. He held a meeting where he declared the whole corpse trial invalid. And just to make sure nothing like this ever happened again, he banned any future trials of dead popes. Perhaps we should celebrate someone who has common sense. But now, this whole affair is known as the Cadaver Synod, one of the strangest chapters in the long history of the Catholic Church. Until next time, this is History Through Comics. Take care, folks, and thanks for watching.